Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
And my name is Catherine, and today we might just teach you how to save a life.
That's right, we're going to save a life, and we are going to do this by applying first aid.
So let's take a look at vocabulary preview and find out just exactly what this phrase means.
Vocabulary preview.
Okay, so we have this word first aid. It's two parts. So first is...
Before.
Early, all right. And aid, so when you aid someone, you help them, right?
Right, so this is actually a noun. Aid is help. So we're applying first aid. This means we're the first person to come and help someone. So for example, if someone is bleeding, the first aid is to stop the bleeding.
Okay.
All right, so first aid, we're going to learn all about this. Take a listen to today's dialogue, and we'll be back in a moment.
Hey Joe, where have you been these past few days?
I've been busy with a first aid course that I started about a week ago at the Red Cross.
Cool! I've always wanted to do something like that. Have you learnt anything useful?
For sure. I mean, we learned how to apply pressure to stop bleeding, how to check for a pulse, and even how to apply CPR.
Have you treated any real emergencies?
Well, they took us along with some paramedics. There was this guy who fell off his motorcycle and suffered a concussion as well as a couple of compound fractures. His wounds were pretty serious, so they had to rush him to the hospital. It was intense.
I can imagine. I tend to faint when I see blood, so I think I won't be taking up a course like that anytime soon.
All right, we're back. So there are a lot of medical and health-related terms in this dialogue, so why don't we take a look at a couple of those in Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Well, starting us out here in Language Takeaway, we have the name of an organization that's not-for-profit, that's very, very, very famous. This is called the Red Cross.
Okay, so the Red Cross. And this is usually a place where you donate blood. You can also get some blood exams done. What else do you do there?
Well, the Red Cross is an organization that has offices and clinics all over the world. And if you want to help, you can volunteer, you can donate money, and you can donate blood. But the Red Cross will take this and it will help other people who have been in disasters or wars. And so maybe the Red Cross office near you will have blood banks and blood donations. But really, they help people, they provide aid to people who are unhealthy or sick or have been in a war.
A very humanitarian organization, so worth it. Go to the Red Cross and donate blood.
In the dialogue, the two people are discussing real emergencies, and one person says he went along with some paramedics. So a paramedic is a person.
It's a person. It's a profession, right? To be a paramedic.
Exactly, but it's not really a doctor. So what's the difference here?
So paramedics are something like nurses, right? That travel in an ambulance and get to an emergency or get to the scene of an accident and help out a person. So they immobilize the person, they give them oxygen, they make sure that they stay alive until they reach the hospital.
Okay, so a paramedic, you might hear the word medic, it's the same thing. A paramedic is like a nurse. They're not a doctor, but they're usually the first person to help when there's been an accident or a disaster.
Right, exactly. So if there is an earthquake and many people are stuck in the buildings, usually paramedics will be the ones on the scene trying to get them out and helping them by applying first aid.
Great. Well, after that, we have finally some of the injuries that a paramedic might see. The first injury is usually associated with the head. This is called a concussion.
You suffered a concussion.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, it does. And actually, it's very common, I think, right? If you fall and you hit your head.
That's right. So a concussion is really when your brain hits your skull. That's the bone that protects your brain. So really, you're hitting your head really, really hard. And usually this can have some bad side effects, like you lose your memory or you're a little bit confused. It's very common with football players.
Yeah. With any contact sport, if people suffer concussions. And it's just like, imagine when you have a DVD player and you hit it and the disc skips or it goes back. That's kind of what happens to your brain, so you can suffer memory loss. You can even lose your sight temporarily.
That's right. So this can be very serious and obviously should be looked at by a paramedic. We also have another situation that is similarly serious. It's called a compound fracture.
Okay, so what is a fracture or to fracture?
A fracture is a thing. It's a break. Okay, so you could say, I broke my arm. But you could also say, I fractured my arm. This is the more medical term. But, of course, there are different ways to break something. And so in medicine, we have a compound fracture.
So a compound fracture is pretty painful, and it's a little bit more serious. You have a simple fracture, which is when your bone just breaks.
Or a hairline, which means that there's a little thin part where it's broken, but it's not really serious.
In this case, it's your bones actually push towards each other. They kind of form like a little mountain, right? Or they're on top of each other.
Think about when two cars hit and they kind of crash up into each other.
Exactly.
It's like that, but it's your bone. So it's extremely painful.
Yeah, it's very, very painful. So the person suffered a concussion and a compound fracture. Now, the friend that he was talking to said, wow, it sounds amazing. It's really cool that you're doing that. But you know what? I faint when I see blood.
Do you do this?
No.
No, me neither. Well, some people, when they see blood, they feel very, very uncomfortable or sick. And so to faint is to fall down on the ground. It's almost like you're falling asleep, but it's not sleep.
Have you ever fainted?
I fainted twice in my life. One time I fainted because of heat. It was very, very, very hot, and I couldn't breathe for a moment, and then I woke up on the ground.
Wow. Yeah. That's what happens.
Exactly.
So, if you ever faint, it's basically that you're just standing there, or you're sitting somewhere, and all of a sudden everything goes black, and you wake up and you're on the ground.
And you feel very, very weak before that.
And very pale, I think, as well. Because
your blood
pale.
goes away from your brain and you pass out. It's a very strange sensation.
It is.
Because then everyone else around you, they know what happened. They saw you, and so they're looking at you like you're crazy or maybe sick.
Right.
To faint.
All right, so that's to faint. So those are the key words that we have for you on Language Takeaway. Let's take a listen to our dialogue again, and we'll be back shortly to take a look at some phrases on Fluency Builder.
Hey, Joe, where have you been these past few days?
I've been busy with a first aid course that I started about a week ago at the Red Cross.
Cool. I've always wanted to do something like that. Have you learnt anything useful?
For sure. I mean, we learned how to apply pressure to stop bleeding, how to check for a pulse, and even how to apply CPR.
Have you treated any real emergencies?
Well, they took us along with some paramedics. There was this guy who fell off his motorcycle and suffered a concussion as well as a couple of compound fractures. His wounds were pretty serious, so they had to rush him to the hospital. It was intense.
I can imagine. I tend to faint when I see blood, so I think I won't be taking up a course like that anytime soon.
All right, so quiz, Marco. What is the first thing that a paramedic does when he or she finds a body at an emergency?
That paramedic checks for a pulse to make sure you're alive, right?
Right, a pulse. So, thum, 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 thum. The pulse is the rhythm, that's the sound of your heart pumping blood. And you can feel someone's wrist or their throat. So to check for a pulse means to check and make sure their heart is pumping blood.
Right. And not only that, but to make sure that the heart is pumping blood relatively normal, because sometimes your heart can be pumping blood too fast or too slow.
And if it's too slow, it's very possible that you will faint.
Very good. All right, so we check for a pulse. Now, what else happens?
Well, if there's a very serious emergency and the paramedic needs help to give aid to the person who is injured, then they will rush that person to the hospital.
Okay, so the verb to rush. What does that mean?
All right, so to rush someone or to rush someone to the hospital means to take someone or to go with someone very, very quickly. Okay, so let's give an example. I could say, listen, Marco, I don't want to rush you, but I really need the report done today.
Or I could say, I need to rush home. My parents need me.
Or if a woman is having a baby, you want to rush her to the emergency room.
Right. Okay, so you need to go quickly. All right, now when we were talking about fainting, the person said, before he used the word faint, he said, I tend to faint.
Okay, I tend to. I tend to is a really great verb that describes a normal or habitual behavior. That's like saying, I tend to faint when it's very, very hot outside. That means I often faint when it's very, very hot outside. It's something that happens normally.
So it's a tendency.
Right, but it's not for everyone. It's for me. So I tend to. What's something that you tend to faint when you see?
I never faint.
You don't
I'm
faint?
a man. No, just kidding. But you know what? I tend to leave the towel on the bed sometimes after I take a shower. I know, it's a bad habit.
And then the sheets smell.
No, they don't, because I leave it there for like 5 or 10 minutes and then I realize, I'm like, oh my God. And then I pick it up. But, it's hard
That's
to...
gross.
No, it's not.
Well, I tend to forget my leftover food in the refrigerator for a long time.
Oh, that's
and then it starts to smell.
That's gross.
But I don't like to waste food.
But you let it rot and then your fridge smells.
It happens. So that's all we've got for Fluency Builder today. But we can talk about tendencies in a moment. Maybe a homework assignment could be to think of something that you tend to do.
That's right. That could be an interesting homework assignment. But before we jump into that, why don't we listen to our dialogue for the very last time?
Hey Joe, where have you been these past few days?
I've been busy with a first aid course that I started about a week ago at the Red Cross.
Cool! I've always wanted to do something like that. Have you learnt anything useful?
For sure. We learned how to apply pressure to stop bleeding, how to check for a pulse, and even how to apply CPR.
Have you treated any real emergencies?
Well, they took us along with some paramedics. There was this guy who fell off his motorcycle and suffered a concussion as well as a couple of compound fractures. His wounds were pretty serious, so they had to rush him to the hospital. It was intense.
I can imagine. I tend to faint when I see blood, so I think I won't be taking up a course like that anytime soon.
All right, we're back. So that's all the time we have for today. Be sure to do your homework assignment. Come to EnglishPod.com. In the comments section, tell us, what do you tend to do?
Could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Obviously, you can try and use some of the vocabulary you heard in today's lesson about health and safety. And you might get some extra points from us for doing that.
I know some people who tend to leave the house with a whole medicine kit in their bags or in their purses.
Really? We could say a first aid kit.
A first aid kit, exactly.
Hello and welcome, amazing English learners. Today we're starting a powerful new journey, one that teaches you how to help someone in an emergency and how to use real, everyday English at the same time. Let's talk about first aid. This phrase is simple but strong. First means before anything else. Aid means help. So, first aid is the first help you give someone when they are sick or hurt, before the doctor or the hospital. You don't need to be a doctor to help. You just need to know a few simple actions. And even better, as you learn these actions, you also learn the language to talk about them in English. Imagine someone falls and starts bleeding. First aid is when you try to stop the bleeding. Or if someone hits their head and is confused, you stay calm, check them, and maybe call for help. Even just knowing how to check for a pulse can be important. A pulse is the rhythm of the heart, and we check it to see if someone is still alive. And what if someone faints? They suddenly fall down because they feel weak or dizzy. This is another moment when first aid is needed. And another moment when the English words we're learning today become part of the action. In this lesson, we're going to discover more about what first aid is, when and how it's used, the real vocabulary people use in emergencies, and how you can use these words to sound more natural in English. We'll also talk about amazing people like paramedics. They're not doctors, but they arrive first at accidents and give first aid. And we'll learn how you can take up a first aid course yourself, just like in the podcast story. First aid is more than just bandages and CPR. It's also about confidence, kindness, and being ready to act in English and in life. Now that you understand what first aid means, the first help before the doctor arrives, it's time to learn what you actually do when someone is hurt. And as you learn the steps, you'll also learn how to describe them clearly in English. Imagine this. Someone has an injury and is bleeding. The first thing you learn in a first aid course is how to apply pressure to the wound. In English, apply means put something on, like putting pressure or putting a bandage. This is a useful word, not only in medicine, but also in daily life. You apply for a job. You apply sunscreen. You apply pressure to stop bleeding. You also learn how to check for a pulse. The pulse is the steady beat of the heart, and it tells us if the person is still alive. You usually check it on the neck or the wrist. If you ever hear someone say, check the pulse, now you know what it means. In the podcast story, one character talks about practicing these skills at the Red Cross. The Red Cross is a well-known humanitarian organization. It helps people during emergencies, disasters, and wars. You can also volunteer there. In English, to volunteer means to help for free from your heart. It's a beautiful word that shows kindness. They also mention learning CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. That means helping someone breathe and move blood when their lungs and heart stop. You probably remember this from the previous episode, but now you're hearing it in a new situation, with more vocabulary, more context, and more practice. Everything you're learning here is real. These are words and actions used in emergencies, but also in normal conversation. That's what makes this topic so useful. It connects your English learning to something meaningful and powerful. In this part, you've learned. Apply pressure to stop bleeding. Check for a pulse to see if the heart is working. How to talk about volunteering and helping through organizations like the Red Cross. How first aid connects to useful daily English. You're not just studying. You're preparing in life and in language. So far, we've talked about first aid, how to apply pressure, and how to check for a pulse. But sometimes things get more serious. And this is where you hear strong vocabulary that's often used in real-life emergencies, movies, and news. In the podcast, there's a story about a man who fell off his motorcycle and had serious injuries. These included a concussion and compound fractures. These are very important medical terms in English, and understanding them helps you describe accidents or injuries clearly. Let's start with concussion. A concussion is a kind of brain injury. It happens when someone hits their head hard, like in a fall or a car crash. In simple terms, it means the brain shakes inside the skull. A person with a concussion might feel confused, dizzy, or even forget things for a while. In sports, especially football and boxing, concussions are common. Now let's look at compound fracture. A fracture is a break in the bone, but a compound fracture is worse. It's when the bone breaks so badly that it may even come out through the skin. This type of injury is extremely painful and serious. In English, we often hear, he broke his arm, simple English. He suffered a compound fracture, more medical, more advanced. When someone has a concussion or a fracture, first aid is important, but so is rushing the person to the hospital. The word rush means to go very fast. It shows that something is urgent. In English, you'll hear, they rushed him to the hospital. I need to rush home. Let's rush to help. These are real, action-based phrases that help you sound natural and confident in English. In this part, you've explored what a concussion is and how to describe it, how to talk about a fracture, especially a compound fracture, the use of the word rush when things are serious or urgent. You've just added more power to your English. Now you can describe what happens in emergency situations, both with action and accuracy. Emergencies can be scary. Even if you know what to do, your body and mind might react with fear. That's completely normal. In fact, in the podcast, one person says, I tend to faint when I see blood. Let's explore what this means and what English you can learn from it. To faint means to suddenly lose consciousness. In simple words, to fall down and pass out. It often happens when someone sees something shocking, feels too hot, or becomes dizzy. In English, people say, she fainted in the heat. He almost fainted when he saw the needle. I faint when I see blood. It's not sleep, and it's not just feeling tired. It's a quick, unexpected moment when your body says, I can't handle this. The phrase, I tend to faint, is also very useful. Let's break it down. The expression, tend to, means something that happens regularly or usually. It describes a habit or a common reaction. Here are more examples. I tend to drink coffee in the morning. She tends to talk too fast when she's nervous. They tend to cancel plans at the last minute. This structure is powerful in English. It helps you talk about your personal habits in a natural way. You can use it to describe your health, your emotions, your routines, anything. So in this part, you've learned two important things. how to describe physical reactions with words like faint, how to use tend to when talking about habits or personal behavior. And beyond the vocabulary, here's something deeper. When you know the language to describe fear, you feel more in control. Even in emergencies, your English can help you stay calm, explain how you feel, and help others understand you. Whether you're helping someone who fainted or just feeling nervous yourself, these expressions help you stay connected, clear, and confident. In any serious emergency, there's one group of people you can always count on: paramedics. These are trained professionals who arrive quickly at the scene, bring medical supplies, and give first aid before taking someone to the hospital. In the podcast, we hear about a first aid student who goes along with some paramedics to a real emergency. He watches them treat a man who had a motorcycle accident. This gives us the perfect chance to learn how to describe what paramedics do in real English. A paramedic is not a doctor, but they are highly trained in emergency care. They usually arrive in an ambulance, and they're often the first to help when something bad happens, like a car crash, a fall, or a disaster. They know how to immobilize a person, keep them from moving, give oxygen, and even perform CPR or use a defibrillator. In English, you'll often hear these types of phrases. The paramedics arrived quickly. He was treated by a team of paramedics. She was rushed to the hospital by paramedics. The word treat is another key verb here. To treat someone means to give them medical help. This can be as simple as stopping bleeding or as serious as helping someone breathe again. For example, the nurse treated my wound. Doctors are treating her for a fever. He was treated for a concussion. You can also use treat in a non-medical way. Let me treat you to dinner. That means I'll pay. But in first aid and health conversations, treat almost always means to give care or attention to someone who is hurt or sick. So in this part, you're learning what paramedics do, how to talk about emergency response in fluent, natural English, how to use the verb treat in both serious and casual ways. These words and phrases help you understand news reports, TV shows, and real-life emergencies. They also help you explain what's happening clearly if you ever witness an accident or just want to talk about health and safety with confidence. Emergencies don't wait. When someone is injured or unconscious, you need to act fast. That's why English has strong, action-focused words to describe these situations, and learning them helps you stay clear and confident under pressure. One of the most common and important words in this situation is rush. To rush means to move or act quickly, often because something is urgent or serious. In first aid situations, you'll hear things like, "They rushed him to the hospital. She was rushed into surgery. We need to rush. This is an emergency." The word rush is not only used in emergencies. You can also use it in everyday English. "I'm late. I have to rush to work." "Don't rush me, I'm thinking. We had a rush to catch the bus." When you use rush, you're showing that something is important and time is short. This word adds emotion and urgency to your sentences, which is very helpful in health-related conversations. Another useful phrase from the podcast is take up, as in, "I took up a first aid course." The phrase take up means to start doing something new, usually a hobby, a class, or an activity. Here are some examples. "I've decided to take up yoga." She took up painting during the summer. He took up volunteering at the local hospital. So when someone says, "I took up a first aid course," it means they started learning something useful and probably gained a lot of new vocabulary along the way, just like you. In this part, you've added 2 more powerful tools to your English. How to talk about urgency and fast action using rush. How to describe starting something new with take up. These phrases are practical, flexible, and used often in everyday conversations. They also help you describe not just what's happening, but how fast it's happening. And that's an important skill in both language and life. In everyday English, we often talk about our usual actions or reactions, things we do again and again without even thinking. These habits can be small or big, good or bad. In the podcast, we hear the phrase, "I tend to faint when I see blood." This is a perfect example of the English structure tend to. Let's take a closer look. When you say, "I tend to," You're talking about something that happens often, but not always. It's a way to describe a pattern in your behavior or choices. It's softer than saying, I always do this. It shows habit, not rule. Here are a few examples. I tend to drink tea in the morning. She tends to speak quietly when she's nervous. They tend to be late to meetings. He tends to forget his phone at home. You can use this phrase to talk about health, personality, or daily life. In first aid conversations, it helps people understand how you usually react. I tend to stay calm in emergencies. I tend to freeze when something scary happens. I tend to call for help right away. This structure is easy to use and makes your English sound more natural and fluent. It also helps you describe yourself, which is very useful in conversation, job interviews, and even doctor visits. And here's something more personal. In the podcast, after the characters talk about fainting, they begin to share other habits, like forgetting food in the fridge or leaving towels on the bed. It becomes a funny and relaxed conversation. And this shows how learning serious vocabulary can still lead to light, friendly moments. In this part, you've learned how to use tend to describe common habits or reactions, how to make your English sound softer, more natural, and more personal, how serious topics can lead to everyday conversations. Now you're able to talk not just about first aid actions, but also about your own behaviors in English. That's real fluency, and you're getting closer every day. You've made it to the final part of this journey, and look at how much you've learned. From simple words like help and pressure, to medical terms like concussion, fracture, and pulse, you now have a deeper understanding of both first aid and the English language. But even more than words, you've gained something bigger, the power to talk about real-life situations in English. First aid isn't just a health skill, it's a life skill. And learning it through English gives you double strength. Now you can explain symptoms, talk about emergencies, describe habits and reactions, stay calm and helpful in a crisis. Share your experiences using real, fluent phrases. Think back to what you've seen along the way. You know how to check for a pulse, how to treat a wound, how to rush someone to the hospital, and how to take up a new course that could save lives. You understand how people tend to react when they're scared, hurt, or trying to help. These are not just phrases from a textbook. These are words people really use in hospitals, homes, conversations, movies, and news. Now they belong to you. This series was designed for English learners like you, people who are curious, thoughtful, and ready to learn both language and life skills. And what better topic than first aid? It teaches us how to be brave, how to care for others, and how to speak clearly when it matters most. So don't stop here. Keep listening. Keep practicing. Keep learning. Maybe one day, you'll be the person who stays calm in an emergency and explains what's happening in perfect English. Because now, you don't just understand the words. You understand the meaning. And you're ready to use it in English and in life.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
To cure an illness by medical means. Treat. A jarring of the brain. Concussion. To be disposed or inclined towards something. Tend to. Move or act swiftly. Rush. Begin with. Take up.
Let's try that faster.
To be disposed or inclined towards something. Tend to. Begin with. Take up. A jarring of the brain. Concussion. To cure an illness by medical means. Treat. Move or act swiftly. Rush.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Treat. I think you should go to the doctor and get treated for that rash. Treat. John is currently being treated for his wounds at the local hospital. Treat. Many patients in this clinic are being treated for swine flu. Concussion. I suffered a mild concussion when I fell off my skateboard. Concussion. A concussion is a brain injury that is caused by a sudden blow to the head or to the body. Concussion. I think you might have a concussion. We should go to the hospital. Tend to. My teacher always tends to undermark my tests. Tend to. All my friends tend to ignore me since I broke up with Andy. Tend to. Don't use this CD player. It tends to damage the discs. Rush. I'll do the dishes when I come back. Now I have to rush to school. Rush. I would like to stay with you, honey, but I have to rush to work. Rush. My grandma had a heart attack this morning and was rushed to the hospital. Take up. After my boyfriend criticized my cooking, I decided to take up a cooking class. Take up. I decided to take up Spanish since I might move to Ecuador in the future. Take up. I would like to take up guitar lessons, but my parents want me to start playing the piano instead.